Hurricane season is here and the stakes have never been higher. With warming waters fueling stronger storms and communities still rebuilding, preparation isn't just smart, it's survival. Tonight we arm you with the facts, the forecast, and the tools to help you weather the next big one. This is RTV Presents Storm Navigator. Good evening and welcome to our special report on the 2025 hurricane season. I'm your host, Jasmine Brown, with meteorologist Greg Thompson. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Jasmine, and good evening. We've got quite a bit of a show for you tonight.
You're absolutely right, Greg. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll break down what this hurricane season could bring and how you can be ready.
Yes, Jasmine, we'll explain the science behind the forecast, the updates from experts, and how climate change is reshaping the risk. Plus, you'll hear from leaders and everyday Bahamians making sure our communities stay safe.
That's right, Greg. Let's begin with a look at how the Disaster Risk Management Agency is already taking action.
One of our most significant achievements is the revamping of the National Disaster Readiness exercises. And this year, in addition to our nationwide exercise, we are for the first time conducting region-specific exercises, ensuring that each island command center is tailored and trained for the unique challenges of its location. These tabletop simulations bring all stakeholders to the table because coordination saves lives. We have also placed a renewed focus on our national shelter system. Our 2025 shelter list now includes detailed capacity data and accessibility features. This year, we are empowering the Family Islands through new satellite phones and Starlink technology provided to each of the island administrators. These upgrades ensure that even when our system fails, the flow of information continues. This is part of our whole of country, whole of community approach, ensuring that no island is left behind. We are also launching a new disaster alert system built on the same platform as the successful Marcos Alert. This means critical warnings, watches, and evacuation orders can now be sent directly to your mobile devices, enabling faster action and saving lives.
Last hurricane season was a busy one. We had 18 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 5 of them reached major hurricane status. It was also the first time since 2019 we saw more than one Category 5 storm. This year, the outlook is a little better. Forecasters are calling for a slightly above average season, and that's welcome news after last year's hyperactive stretch. And Greg, right now the prediction is for one less named storm than we had last year. What else are we looking at this year? I understand it might not be quite as intense.
Yeah, Jasmine, even though we are expecting one less storm for this year, we still expect an above average season. Of course, there are some ingredients in place, but we'll give you the numbers first. This is the outlook for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. Colorado State and NOAA, or the National Hurricane Center, have already put out their numbers. Colorado State expecting 17 or forecasting 17 named storms, 9 of those becoming hurricanes, 4 major hurricanes expected. 13 to 19 is the NOAA's prediction, and they also give a range. 6 to 10 of those becoming hurricanes, and 3 to 5 becoming major hurricanes. The averages over the 30-year period: 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3. And of course, as you mentioned, 2024 was a busy one: 18 named storms, 11 of those becoming hurricanes, 5 of those becoming major hurricanes. Why things are going to be happening this year a little above average? We still have slightly cooler waters, but it's almost neutral across the Pacific, and that spells some conduciveness for the formation of hurricanes this season. And then, of course, the Atlantic waters, is really warm, and we're expecting that to stay much the same. We did have very warm waters last year as well. So we're looking across the Atlantic and into the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico. You notice the Gulf of Mexico is extremely warm. The forecast calls for most of the system to be tracking towards the south and south of 20, actually, to south of the Bahamas. That's all due to the ridge of high pressure that's sitting across the Atlantic out there in the open waters, and that's going to continue to steer those storms towards the west. The Gulf of Mexico, very active season expected for them. Of course, the Gulf of Mexico states, as well as West Florida, expecting a lot of storms during this 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. But we will continue to watch this as we are not quite there into the full extent of the Atlantic hurricane season. August, and September becoming the peak of the season. So we still have some time to be looking out there in the open Atlantic.
And with that, Greg, I want to move to the already published storm names. Here now are the first 11. Andrea, Barry, Chantal, Dexter, Aaron, Fernand, Gabriel.
Then there's Humberto, Imelda, Jerry, and Kerry. When it comes to hurricanes, not all threats are equal. Many people prepare for strong winds, but in the Bahamas, water poses one of the biggest dangers. Let's talk about what you need to know for the upcoming hurricane season. Know your risk. Are you in a flood-prone area? Understand your evacuation zones and shelter locations. Prepare your property ahead of time. Don't wait for the warnings. Of course, these are some of the things we want you to take care of right now before the Atlantic hurricane season gets in full swing.
Definitely some good advice and tips there, Greg. And in keeping with what we just heard from Greg, the Disaster Risk Management Agency says preparation starts long before a storm forms, and that's why they've taken a proactive approach this season. Physical supplies are essential, and the DRM says mindset matters too. Our greatest defense, a culture of readiness.
With forecasters predicting 17 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes, the 2025 hurricane season is shaping up to be more active than usual. But Minister responsible for disaster risk management, Leon Lundy, says the country isn't waiting for a storm to prepare.
This year, in addition to our nationwide exercise, we are for the first time conducting region-specific exercises, ensuring that each island command center is tailored and trained for the unique challenges of its location.
There's also renewed focus on emergency shelters. For the first time, the National Shelter List includes capacity and accessibility information, helping families make safer choices.
This data collection allows us not only to plan better, but also to identify and address shelter gaps across the entire country. I am especially proud to announce that the landmark Marsh Harbor Hurricane Shelter will be ready to protect the people of Abaco during this hurricane season.
The state-of-the-art shelter in Abaco isn't just for a storm. It will also serve as a community hub when the skies are clear.
Purpose-built to withstand winds in excess of 200 miles per hour, this shelter has passed all Ministry of Works inspections.
Other upgrades include new satellite phones and Starlink technology for reliable communication. A new disaster alert system modeled after Marcos Alert will now push crucial information directly to mobile devices.
This means critical warnings, watches, and evacuation orders can now be sent directly to your mobile devices, enabling faster action and saving lives.
Minister Lundy is urging all Bahamians to act now, know your shelter, secure your home, and have a family plan in place. Reporting for Our News, I'm Dervado Emmanuel.
From the full list of storm names to how rescue crews like Basra are gearing up, we're showing you what it really takes to face hurricane season head on. Plus, ever wonder what an alert actually means or how warmer waters are fueling stronger storms? We're breaking it all down and find out what the government says it's doing to protect flood-prone communities. We've got that and more when Storm Navigator continues. Welcome back to Storm Navigator, the 2025 Atlantic Hurricane Special. I'm your host, Jasmine Brown. Thanks for sticking with us as we help you navigate this season together. We now bring you the remaining potential storm names for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, beginning with Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, Olga, Pablo.
And then we have Rebecca, Sebastian, Tanya, Van, and Wendy. And that rounds out the 21 names for the potential storms for the season. You'll be able to find a full listing at ournews.bs.
And while we watch and wait when a storm does hit, it's all hands on deck. Basra volunteers know that firsthand. Here's how Basra's Director of Disaster Preparedness and Hurricane Response, Captain Cameron Gibson, says they're preparing for this season.
Our 5 other tips are creating an emergency kit that has all of the essentials that you need, staying informed, protecting your home, knowing your evacuation zone, and staying connected. The role that Basra plays, we're a part of the Grand Bahama Disaster Committee, and we are primarily a search and rescue response agency. We need as many members as we can get. On top of that, we use assets in the field to carry out search and rescue. So we're still trying to get our own seaplane that allow us to facilitate search and rescue operations more efficiently. And we're also always accepting donations of life vests, any type of assets that we can use in marine search and rescue.
Basra recently teamed up with Alive and Cartwright to share critical safety tips ahead of the new hurricane season under the theme, It Takes a Village to Keep a Community Safe. Alive Strategic Partners Coordinator in the Family Islands, Imani Roberts.
If it's load sharing or if the power goes off or during the hurricane itself, we will have the MiFis that will keep you connected to our service while the storm is happening as long as it is charged. So we're trying to make sure that everyone knows this this information, and we partnered with Basra and Cartwright so that you can get things at really great prices. You can get your membership. You can shop here with or without a membership, but of course with the membership you get the really good prices at Cartwright. And then Basra, the persons who are here during, after, and before the hurricane, just to let you know exactly what steps you need to take during and after the hurricanes. We just wanted to make sure that the community knows and understands that we are here to help. We are here during the storm, after the storm.
So what happens when a storm is approaching? The alert system is designed to guide your response, but only if you understand it. Alert means stay aware, watch means be ready, warning means take action. Use trusted sources like the Met Department, radio, television, and emergency apps. Don't wait to be surprised. We go back to meteorologist Greg Thompson to get familiar with the language. And Greg, I know the weather jargon can be confusing for some. What does our audience looking to stay prepared need to know?
Well, of course, as you mentioned, we have the alert system in place. We do have an alert that allows you 60 hours ahead of time to get your necessary action in place. Then we move into the watches and the warnings. Tropical storm watch and tropical storm warnings, both really applying to the hurricane watches and warnings as well. That means tropical storm or hurricane conditions could be possible within your area within 48 hours. And of course, you need to start taking the necessary precautions and preparations for that. Tropical storm warning means it's 36 hours, so you don't really have much time in which to prepare. You have to get things really going. And as I mentioned, that will also applies to the hurricane watches and warning. Tropical storm winds 39 miles per hour to 73 miles per hour likely to affect your area, as well as those tropical storm conditions. Hurricane conditions, those winds 74 miles per hour or greater affecting your area. So you need to get your actions and your plans in place before the hurricane season so that you will be prepared for the upcoming busy hurricane season.
And we've just gone over what the alerts mean, but what's actually driving these stronger, more dangerous storms? Scientists say rising ocean temperatures are a big part of it. So what's really happening beneath the surface?
Hurricane season is here, and forecasters are predicting one of the busiest seasons in recorded weather history, with 6 to 10 storms forecasted to be full-blown hurricanes, with winds reaching 74 miles per hour or higher, and 3 to 5 storms could be major hurricanes with deadly winds of 111 miles per hour or above. So what contributes to this storm's packing a powerful punch? Executive Director of the Small Island Sustainability Program at the University of the Bahamas, Dr. Kristen Anwala explains.
Basically, a warmer atmosphere means there's more kinetic energy, more movement, so it has a greater capacity to hold moisture. And that means more water from the ocean can pass from a liquid phase into that gaseous phase. And that's when we get more humidity and just more water vapor being held in the atmosphere that's fueling those hurricanes.
And Wallace says it's a result of climate change. One of the most powerful storms to hit the Bahamas was Hurricane Dorian. The monster storm devastated the northern Bahamas in 2019. And Wallace calling it an unforgettable example of how the changing environment is impacting weather patterns. And with these powerful storms comes coastal flooding that can have devastating impacts on the environment and its ecosystems.
Storm surge tends to reach farther inland. There's flooding that happens for much longer periods. So we've seen that in many islands right in recent years with hurricanes, that the water table has been impacted by storm surge flooding.
This presents a major challenge as many residents still rely on well water. Here's what you should do if this affects you.
They would not be able to use that water because it would be too saline. And so relying on bottled water in those instances, ensuring that before hurricanes come, that you have adequate water that's in storage as well, because once salt water gets into the water table, essentially we can't use that groundwater any longer.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
And Greg, as we just heard there from Dr. Anwala, for families relying on well water, what practical steps should they take before a storm hits to make sure they have safe drinking water afterwards?
Well, of course, she mentioned you need to rely on the bottled waters because, as she said, once that saltwater intrusion gets into our aquifers, that groundwater, those wells will not be usable. So bottled water, and of course, make sure you know how much is required per person so that you can stay well stocked.
Great advice. Dr. Anwala mentioned that warmer atmospheric conditions are fueling stronger storms. Can you break down how rising ocean temperatures play into hurricane development?
Well, climate change, big topic that people seem not to want to touch, but yeah, climate change plays a very big part of that. Of course, as she mentioned, we get a lot of evaporation from the surface. Hurricanes use that warm water and the evaporation process. The water condenses, releases heat, and there you have big heat engine. That's what storms look for to sustain themselves. So once we could continue to get that effect, of course, storms will start to get stronger. And we're starting to see those storms really pick up in speed in terms of intensification. So those are big players in the formation of these systems.
When we talk about major hurricanes, those with winds over 111 miles per hour, what kind of damage are we really talking about, especially for low-lying islands like the Bahamas?
Well, catastrophic. That's just the one word to use. Of course, 110 mile per hour winds could do some really significant damage. And then, of course, storm surge. You're having a lot higher storm surge moving further inland, as she mentioned. And if you're living on the shoreline, you remember now the Bahamas is a very relatively flat landmass. So if you get those storm surge moving well inland, then you have some serious problems. And of course, another thing to keep in mind, we are removing a lot of the mangroves around the shorelines. Those mangroves play a very important part in helping to curb the storm surge and those flooding in those areas.
Thanks, Greg. Some really good information there. I know you've got lots more to tell us, but before we dive back into the conversation, we've just heard how rising temperatures and stronger storms can do serious damage, especially to homes and essential resources like well water. While the government says it's taking action, millions of dollars are being earmarked in the new budget to tackle flooding head on. And the Works Minister says residents could start seeing real changes within the next year.
Amid predictions of an overly active hurricane season, Works Minister Clay Sweeting says the government is working on a flood remediation plan in flood-prone areas like Pinewood, Coral Harbor, and downtown Nassau. In addition to an excess of $20 million allocated in the 2025-2026 budget to assist in this task, Sweeting says his ministry has engaged a company to do a full assessment on the vexing issue. He predicts the rollout of the plan over the next 12 months.
If you notice in the budget, you'll see allocations to help to support that. You'll see $20 million for Pinewood. I think it's over $2 million for Coral Harbor. Downtown is also included. So you'll see over the next year a full overall implementation plan with ensuring that areas that have been flooding for a long time actually we helped to mitigate some of that.
Heavy rainfall causes heavy flooding in multiple areas across New Providence, but perhaps the worst of it is seen in areas like Pinewood and downtown Nassau. Residents of these areas have long complained of the severe flooding in their areas and the damage it causes to vehicles and homes. But Sweeting explains while it's extremely difficult to eradicate flooding, we can mitigate it.
So if you look at downtown, you notice that the rain drains much quicker than it did in years prior. There are some other things we need to do down there because we cleaned out all the catchments. We rerouted a lot of the infrastructure that actually was in the drain downtown. We rerouted some of those, so you'll see some more implementation down there.
Sweeting also explaining that his ministry is getting new equipment that will improve the process.
We have some new technology with ValPro valves, which help to check the water off. So you'll see a lot of different type of technology that helps to not only assess but notify when flooding might start to happen.
Reporting for our news, I'm Berthany McDermott.
As government rolls out new plans to fight flooding in high-risk areas, there are also big changes in how early we'll be warned when a storm is on the way. What if you had an extra day to get ready before a storm hits? Up next, the National Hurricane Center is giving us more time to prepare. We'll explain what's changing and why it could be a game changer this season when Storm Navigator returns. Welcome back to Storm Navigator, the 2025 Hurricane Special. Thanks for staying with us. There are some important updates from the National Hurricane Center this season, all aimed at giving people more time to prepare and clearer information about what to expect. The biggest change, meteorologist Greg Thompson, who is helping us navigate this year's hurricane season, tells us. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Jasmine. The biggest change we're seeing for the National Hurricane Center is advisories for potential tropical cyclones, or PTCs. Those can now be issued up to 72 hours before tropical storm force conditions or storm surge are expected to reach land. That's a full day earlier than before and could be a game changer when it comes to getting ready for a storm.
And Greg, walk us through the others and what those changes mean for families across the country.
So you've got an expanded advisory timeline. We used to see watches and warnings issued 36 to 48 hours out. Now advisories can come as early as 72 hours.
And what kind of difference can that extra time make when it comes to preparation and response?
A lot of difference. It gives you a lot of leadway in which to prepare for this pending hurricane, so that if you hadn't taken care of all those necessary things prior to the storm reaching you, you can do so at that time.
And Greg, there's also focus on storm surge and rainfall hazards.
Yes, advisories will now link to graphical tools instead of listing storm surge and rainfall numbers for every area.
So how will this help people better understand the risks and know when to take action?
So that gives you the information you need in the event that you may have to deal with storm surge or some flooding and the necessary things the actual things that happen with the system impending upon you. And it gives you lead time in which to evacuate if you have to evacuate. And if you are told to evacuate, it's a good thing to do so.
And we're also learning about improved forecast accuracy.
Yeah, NOAA's upgraded forecast system is expected to improve track and intensity predictions by about 5%.
Now, I know that might sound small, but how big of a deal is it in forecasting terms?
It's a big deal. Intensity forecasting has always been a problem for the National Hurricane Center. So the better the improvement is on the intensity forecasting, the better they can warn the public of an impending system. So staying protected, these are the things we advise you to do to keep yourself protected when a storm is moving on in your location. Shelter in place in your designated safe place. Have a way to get weather alerts and forecast updates, such as a battery-operated radio and data packages for your phones. Of course, keep in mind that the impacts can be felt well in advance of a tropical storm or hurricane force winds before it gets to you. Listen to your local officials, such as the Department of Meteorology as well as the DRM Authority for all the updates. Of course, avoid traveling unless you are ordered to evacuate the location you are in.
Thanks so much for that, Greg. We'll check back in with you shortly to break down another lesser known term. For now, we know that's a lot to take in, but remember, our news and our TV are here to help you stay prepared. You can always keep up with the latest using our storm tracker at ournews.bs and get first-hand alerts updates straight to your mobile device. And speaking of mobiles, a recent fire near the Alive facility in Marsh Harbor is a reminder of just how vulnerable critical infrastructure can be, especially with forecasters and scientists warning that climate change could bring even more extreme weather. But it's not all doom and gloom. From individuals to major companies, many are stepping up their storm prep. While in Abaco, Cable Bahamas CEO Franklin Butler shared how the company is already investing in stronger, more resilient infrastructure, especially when it comes to hurricanes.
What we have been doing is reviewing all of our processes, thinking about all of our resilience and redundancy. I think one of you know after the Hurricane Dorian, we buried all of our fiber underground. And so generally from a connectivity perspective, this is why the fire was so unusual for us, because we think about hurricanes, we didn't think about fire risk before. Now we had to think about a different kind of risk. So I must tell you that we are fully prepared now, generally in Abaco, to make sure that if a hurricane comes by, that we should be able to have the right level of connectivity.
Butler also highlighted improvements to home services that will keep you connected.
In addition to that, we are rolling out our live fiber service, which will allow fiber to the home for every customer across Abaco. So you'll see many of our technicians, and we expect that early July we'll be launching that service. Wherever possible, we've tried to bury that infrastructure as well, so there's a different level of resiliency. So in addition to our 4G LTE services on the Alive mobile network, the fiber services will also be in a position to make sure that we can carry traffic.
And every year, a terrifying storm shows up in weather forecasts only to vanish days later. These so-called ghost hurricanes may not be real, but I understand they actually play an important role in tracking real tropical threats. We'll bring Greg back into the conversation. And Greg, what exactly is a ghost hurricane and why do they keep appearing and disappearing in forecasts?
Yeah, Jasmine, ghost hurricanes are these systems that pop up in some of the models that we use to help to track these storms. Of course, they're just there. They pop up on a couple of days later, they're gone. These has to do with the biases or the errors in the forecast models that we use. Once we figure those things out, we're able to weed those ones out, and we know which storms are going to be serious and the ones that we do not take very seriously.
How do meteorologists decide when a storm model is worth taking seriously and when it's just noise?
Well, with the models, you know that the system or the model is doing a good job when it is taking the initial starting point of the storm and it's moving it progressively nicely. So if those conditions are right, then we tend to rely little on those. But over the couple of days, if you see the system really blowing up, then you know something is wrong with the model. So we start to use other models to track the storms. So some of the things you can do in the post-storm action, of course, as the system has moved out of the area, you get the all clear. Of course, the Department of Meteorology as well as the DRM will give you the all clear, but if they don't, then you need to stay in place. Remain vigilant as hazards can remain, such as flooded waters, down power lines. Of course, you have some debris floating around. Exercise caution during the cleanup efforts. In the event of extended power outages, use generators, but make sure when you use those generators, you have those ones outdoors if you don't have a backup generator. And then you can help with communications. Help and communications may not immediately be available after storm. So we're asking you to try and see if you can get the information out to the other people in your family.
All right, Greg, thanks. Don't go far. We are soon winding down and we need final thoughts from you. But when we come back, think your hurricane windows are storm ready? Think again. One expert says cutting corners could cost you everything, even your peace of mind. Storm Navigator is back in a moment. You're watching Storm Navigator, the 2025 Hurricane Special. Thanks for keeping our company tonight. So far, we've seen just how important it is to have a plan. Forecasters are calling for up to 19 named storms, including as many as 5 major hurricanes. That's why now's the time to stock up, know your evacuation route, and stay connected with trusted sources like us. And by now, you should know your risk, have your emergency kit ready, and secure your property. But when it comes to storm-proofing your home, what more can you do? The CEO of Storm Frame Windows and Doors shares expert tips to help you stay ready.
If your home isn't equipped and ready for hurricanes, and you run the risk of, people possibly getting hurt and your home getting damaged.
These words of warning from CEO and founder of Storm Frame Windows and Doors, Adam Dan. With more than 25 years in the business, Dan says it's no secret that hurricanes are getting bigger and stronger. That's why he says it's important you storm-proof your home. He's cautioning homeowners to outfit their property with authentic products.
In the Bahamas, there's no law against providing something that's hurricane resistant, but it's not remotely hurricane resistant and not tested and would never pass. So when you're considering hurricane windows and doors, please make sure that there's certification for approval, because the cheaper vinyl products out there are not remotely hurricane rated, and if you think you're getting a deal, you're not.
And while the hurricane season is in full swing, he says it's never too late to act.
Make sure everything's operating right, your hardware is good, it's not rusted, and if you cannot afford authentic hurricane windows and doors, I would absolutely buy plywood and just be prepared now.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Danielle Miller.
Really powerful reminders there from Adam Dan. If your home isn't properly storm-proofed, you're not just risking property damage, you're putting your family at risk. And one of the most important takeaways, don't cut corners. Certified hurricane-rated products matter, and if that's out of reach, plywood and early prep can go a long way. Greg, before we wrap up, for families who may not be able to afford hurricane-proof windows or doors, what low-cost options would still offer some protection?
Well, of course, as you mentioned, plywood, but those are the necessary things that you would need to protect your home. So if you cannot do that and you have to evacuate, it is advisable that you evacuate to a safe place.
And what are the biggest mistakes you've seen homeowners make when it comes to getting storm ready?
Procrastination. If you take too long to prepare for the hurricane season, as it creeps upon you, you don't have sufficient time. So we're asking you to get all the necessary things in place. Make sure your hurricane plans are in place and do the necessary things around your home to make sure you stay safe.
All right, Greg, thank you for all your insight. I'm sure our audience is much better off with all the important information you shared.
Yeah, thanks, Jasmine. And we're asking everybody to make sure you get prepared for the upcoming hurricane season.
And thank you for staying with us through Storm Navigator, the 2025 Hurricane Special. Remember, planning ahead is always better than panicking later. On behalf of meteorologist Greg Thompson and the entire RTV team, I'm Jasmine Brown. Until next time, remember to stay safe, stay informed, and as always, keep it locked on Our News.